Welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast, episode number 17. Today's guest is the one and only Rob Moore. He is the best-selling author of Life Leverage and Money, and he's also the host of the Disruptive Entrepreneur podcast, which now boasts over 600 episodes. He's also set up the Rob Moore Foundation, through which he aims to help young entrepreneurs start and scale their businesses. This episode was originally live-streamed to Rob's Facebook page.
Hi, it's Rob Moore here, and I am with the lovely Emily Hughes, who's there. And Emily runs a fabulous podcast called, Emily, do you want to let us know the title?
Parent Guide to GCSEs. Does what it says on the tin.
Right. And you want to talk today about raising smart, financially literate, hopefully wealthy teens that can retire our parents, maybe?
Oh, yes. That would be spot on. So I figured since, so obviously we mostly cover GCSE kind of stuff and post-16 as well. And we support parents to help their children with all of the educational aspects, but that's not what it's all about. It's also about making sure that they become an independent, confident adult at some point relatively soon. Sorry, I know that's scary. So we try and cover bits of everything. One of the important things that we covered over the summer, because obviously exams were cancelled, we have members who have our support for getting their children ready for exams. And we thought, that's not very helpful anymore. Now they don't have exams. So we pivoted a little bit. Been a lot of pivoting this year, and we did some financial literacy stuff with them. So we talked, pay slips and why payday loans are probably quite a bad idea if you don't know what you're doing, credit cards, how to use them, that kind of thing. And I figured who better to talk to our parents about how to help their teens be financially literate than you, because for those of you listening to the podcast who maybe don't know Rob literally wrote the book. So Money, Know More, Make More, Give More. Talking about all the different aspects of money and things you need to know. Oh, yeah, it'll be on the bookshelf somewhere if you're watching, right? So first up, I wanted to ask about the foundation, because obviously this is a big part of what you do with the foundation. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about it, what you do, how you do it?
Sure. So I wrote the book Money, which is there if you're watching the live. I wrote that. The 3-year anniversary just happened quite recently. My publisher tells me it's the best-selling book on money in the UK market, which I'm very pleased and proud and grateful for. And I wanted to write an holistic book about money, almost like the go-to book for money. I've read so many money books, and many good ones on strategies or tactics or skill set or mindset or story or history. But I wanted my book to cover everything. You could grab one book, a nice meaty book, and really learn the history, the psychology, the story, your mindset around it, skill set, strategies, tactics, even future stuff like quantum entanglement and other random increased speed of and reduction in friction of money movement. And in studying the book Money, and probably nearly a 15-year study of money, and studying many philanthropists, most philanthropists are either retired or billionaires who have kind of been forced by society or themselves in a revelation to become a philanthropist. And many philanthropists are in their 60s and 70s. And I thought, why don't I get ahead of the game? So I decided I wanted to become a philanthropist at age 37 instead of age 67. So I got more time to build something meaningful. And I'd interviewed many great philanthropists like Sir Tom Hunter, who's doing great work. He's a Scottish billionaire. So I suppose I just wanted to be a bit disruptive and start a bit earlier than many of the great philanthropists. And obviously, having studied many of them, that really helped me. So my foundation, its purpose, our vision, is to help as many people on this planet start and scale their business, especially young and underprivileged people. So I'll help a teenager or anyone who wants to start a business in the developing world, or anyone who's had a really hard time in life, anyone who's struggling financially. Look, my foundation will help anyone who's got a meaningful product or service that can make a difference in the world, but especially young and underprivileged people. I launched it when I launched my book, and I pledged all the profits of my book Money to the foundation. And actually, it's hot off the press because this has just been officialized today, but my foundation is partnering with the Prince's Trust, and we're running a Young Entrepreneurs Summit on the 6th of February. And that's a not-for-profit, so all of the money that's raised for that will go to the Prince's Trust and the Rob Moore Foundation. So I think there is a significant lack of financial education that works, on the streets, in the real world. I'm not knocking the school system. A lot of people do. I don't, because I think they do a lot of good work. And it prepares you if you want to be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, etc. And of course, there is business studies and there is economics. So it's not like there's a lack of information, but we're not taught money emotions, how to handle that, that feeling of keeping up with the Joneses or spending money that you don't have, or, chasing debt and credit, like you said before. We're not really taught about good budgeting. We're not really taught about the universal laws of money, like the law of fair exchange and the history of money. And I mean, if you think about it, we're taught history, and some people love it and some people don't. But surely learning the history of money would be a really interesting subject to learn at school. So this is really what my foundation does.
That's awesome, because as an ex-maths teacher of 15 years, I know that for my part, I mean, things like compound interest, they're on the curriculum. So you've got time for them, but it's maybe one lesson if you're lucky. Yeah. Everything else, unless you can find some way to squeeze it in, and given the amount you have to cover, you don't tend to get to, it's really difficult, because you know how important it is and you want to be able to kind of fit as much in as you can. But children are leaving school with grades on a piece of paper, but not necessarily the well-rounded education, particularly financially speaking, that they could have. The Young Entrepreneurs Summit sounds awesome. Sounds like something I need to be sending my daughter on. She is about to turn 12. She's just set up her own business, following in our footsteps. So she's set up a scrunchy subscription service, because scrunchies are back in. I don't know if you remember when we were young, scrunchies were all the rage. Yeah. They're back now, you see. So she's jumping in on the trend. She's on TikTok. She's way cooler than I am. I've got a bit of catching up to do, so I might send her on the summit and then get her to teach me some stuff.
Yeah, well, the way we're doing it is we're going to charge, a relatively small amount of money, just £35 a ticket, because I want everyone to be able to afford it. That all goes to the foundations, and we're doing like a parent and young entrepreneur 2-for-1. So, and by the way, young entrepreneurs can be 30 or 25, not just 15 or 12, but so by all means, bring her along and leverage her up. I completely agree with you. I think the school system has probably evolved since I've been at it. And I think a lot of people take pot shots at the school system who are entrepreneurial. I think we should be working in harmony, entrepreneurs and the school system. But when I was at school, if you studied a book, you could get 95%. I studied religious studies. I just read the parable of the sower and these other parables. And I got an A star, and I'm not particularly like religiously minded or naturally good at that, because I just learned it. I just recited it. And you can't really recite what it takes to earn and spend and budget and invest and save money. You've actually got to do that with real life experience. And, are people taught at school money bucketing, and, how much of that you earn can you save and can you invest, and, a proper budgeting system. And again, I'll say again, because it's so important, the emotions that we have around money. So, when we have fear, we tend to spend money to alleviate our fear. When we get overexcited, we tend to spend money to celebrate. We often don't do enough due diligence and research because we just like the person. So we give them money, and we're not really prepared for these, emotions around money in the real world. And so that's hopefully something that I can help change.
Definitely. So if you could go back and talk to Rob before he went to university, what advice would you give him now, knowing what you know?
Stop drinking so much and stop just focusing on the girls and stuff. Look, my dad, this was actually a really interesting thing my dad did, because my dad said, if you get all A's at GCSE, I'll give you 200 quid. Now, I'm 41, so this is 26 years ago. Oh, my goodness me, I feel old. And that really worked for me, because, when I was 15, I sort of fell in love for the first time with my first ever girlfriend. And that I was also a single handicap golfer. So I was obsessed about golf and my girlfriend, then Nicola, and I wasn't interested in anything else. And then my dad said, look, you know, your GCSEs are coming up in a few months. Get all A's, I'll give you 200 quid, which is a massive amount of money back then. Massive. And I was like, right. And that got me focused an hour or two a day, every evening, just reciting, you know, all of the different subjects. And I had to think smart. So I thought, well, I knew I was going to get an A star in GCSE because I was good at art. Sorry, I was really good at art. So I knew that was covered. There's a couple of other subjects that was covered. But maths was weak for me. Geography was weak for me. There's a couple of others. So I sort of studied those a bit. And I just, like I said, I just recited things. I just read them over and over. And I got 2 A stars, 6 A's and 2 B's. And Dad said, well, look, the A stars and the B's count themselves out. Well, you're averaging an A. And he gave me 200 quid. And it really worked. So he taught me a bit about sort of reward and incentive, which, again, maybe we're not taught as much, you know, in the curriculum. So that really helped. And, you know, of course, it's a big amount of money for me to earn back then. So, you know, that was definitely very helpful. Sorry, can you just remind me of the question again? Because I know that I've told a story and gone off on a tangent.
What advice would you give to Rob just before he went to university?
Yeah, okay. So I would probably say to Rob, the first thing is you've got to sort of get clear about who you are and what you want to do with your life. Because, you know, if you want to be a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, solicitor, an accountant, all great vocations that are required. I'm an entrepreneur and I teach entrepreneurs, but I don't in any way belittle any other vocation because we're all needed. If you want to be that, then that's pretty clear at school what you do. You get your careers advice if you're not down the pub, you know, and you pick your, you know, your A levels and you pick your university and hopefully you get good grades and you follow that system. But if you want to be a bit entrepreneurial, a bit dynamic, a bit disruptive, a bit left field, then that's a very different path. And you've got to get clear on that quite early. So I would say every day as a teenager, and even people who are watching who are 40 and 50, who am I and what do I want to do with my life? Who am I and what do I want to do with my life? Never at school are we taught to ask ourselves, who am I? And I, you know, that's a hard question to answer for a lot of people. I now know I'm an entrepreneur and that's deep within my identity, but I didn't know that for 27 years of my life, even though I was raised that way. So who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And try and answer that question. And if you do want to be entrepreneurial, then you've got to start your own little business. And you can start your own business on the, you know, in the school field, in the school playing ground, or, you know, wherever teenagers hang out at school now, probably not the playing field or the bus shelters or anything else. But, you know, you can set up an account on Shopify and on TikTok and, you know, on Facebook, and you can have a supporter program on Facebook, and you can set up an Amazon account, and you can do a JV with your parents and sell all their stuff on eBay, not the stuff that they want to keep. And you could do a 50-50 with them. And you can actually start part-time evenings and weekends setting up your side hustle. So who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And start up your business as quick as you can, like your 12-year-old daughter is. Because, you know, let's be honest, your daughter's probably not going to be her final career that she ever does. But most entrepreneurs sell 3 or 4 products or do 3 or 4 different businesses before they find the big one. So that's what I would do.
Awesome. Because you... So to kind of tell a little bit of the story and why you're so qualified to talk about this, you kind of left university and you talk about how you were 50 grand or so in debt and went from that at 28 was it through till turning into a millionaire at age 30. What did you do? Because we can all talk about the moment that we changed our minds and decided we were going to make a difference, but it's the actual what you then did and how you got past the initial bumps in the road that I'm guessing happened.
Yeah, so the apex of my depression, if that's a paradox, the depths of my despair financially and emotionally were December the 15th, 2005. So my dad had raised me to be an entrepreneur. He had pubs, clubs, hotels, bars, restaurants, you know, made probably $1 million, went bust, made more money, went bust, you know, a good few times. Had a big portfolio in the 80s, and then the Gulf War happened, and he had pubs and bars and hotels in Mildenhall and Lakenheath, and that was where the bases were. And then all the Americans just left the country, left the bases, and then that really hit him. He got me in his pub age 6, counting the money from the pool tables and the fruit machines and the pinball machines and bottling up and restocking all the shelves. And I loved it, and I just looked up to him like my idol. He used to have all this money. He used to have loads of cash, those big £10 notes, the big brown £10 notes, which were like, they're the size of a book when you're a little kid. And I was like, oh, Dad, money. And he taught me to hustle. He taught me to work. He took me on, he'd take me to when he was doing business deals or buying stock at auctions or liquidation sales. And I just loved it. But probably going to school, doing GCSEs, A-levels and uni, that got me back into the schooling system. Nothing wrong with it. That's just not me. I'm just not that. That's just not what I was supposed to do. But then I got myself into debt because, when you go to uni, you've got accommodation. My year was the last year where you didn't have to pay your fees. But now you've got to pay your fees, your accommodation, your travel. And it's not that hard to build up a debt of 20, 30, 50 grand over 5 years. I came back, just spent a little bit more than I earned every month, didn't really account for my money properly, put stuff on credit cards here and there, paid the minimum balance, tried to juggle them all. And, from the age of 18 to 25 or 26, so 7 years, I just accrued debt. And, compounding works just as heavily in reverse as it does in the positive, and debt compounds heavily the wrong way. And I got myself about 50 odd grand in debt. December the 15th, 2005, long story, very short. My dad had a major nervous breakdown in his pub in front of all of his customers. He got wrestled to the floor and sort of manhandled by the police. He got sectioned, diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that for me was a rude awakening because I felt so shamed and embarrassed and powerless. My dad was and still is my hero. And so to go through that and to see that happen to him in his 50s, I think he was 15 years ago, I think it was. Yeah, 16 years ago it'll be next month. So it was humiliating for me, and it got me really introspective and beating myself up and just questioning, why am I just floating and drifting? Why am I working in my dad's pub? Why am I not going out there and chasing a dream or trying to do something meaningful? My mum and dad always looked after me, but that probably made me a bit dependent on them, and they probably didn't have the courage to say, son, get out and go and chase your dreams, you're gone, which probably would have been good for me, but this all forced it. And I was 26 years and 11 months then. So I started searching, what can I get into? I had a little part-time art business on the side. So I tried to scale that up. And one of my gallery owners was into property. So I went to a property networking event. The very first property networking event I went to, I met my business partner, Mark Homer, who I've been with in business now nearly 15 years. Got into property, bought a load of properties, none of my own money down the first year. Then we recycled the cash, and then we used Mark's stepdad's money and then his mum's money. And we went from 20 to 50 to 100 properties in 3 years, not just for us, we sourced for others too. And then I started teaching other people how to buy property because we'd done well and people were interested. I wrote, there's a book here, Property Investing Secrets. The edition 1 of that was 2008. So that's, this is like edition 5 now. And so then when we started running training courses for property, we were making money in property and making money teaching people how to do property. And that company is now the biggest property training company in the UK. We've kind of just acquired our second biggest competitor as well. And then, of course, there's other business courses. We run 17 different courses now. Public speaking, podcasting, social media, personal development, Shopify, Amazon, loads of different property courses, commercial property, buy-to-let property. And it just sort of grew and grew from there. And yeah, I became a millionaire just before the age of 31. So I guess 3-4 years, and I grafted, I did work pretty hard. I'm more leveraged now and have a lot more staff and have a lot more help and sort of don't work as many hours, but I did in the early days and I enjoyed it. I loved, when you're doing something that's for you, there's something motivating about that. So, if you work really hard for someone else, sometimes you can think you're either making someone else wealthy or you can't really create change because it gets, it stops at your manager or the manager's manager. But when you work for you, you get the fruits of your rewards in direct proportion to your efforts and results. So the more I was putting in, the more I was getting out. So I wrote 1 book and 2 books, and now I've just finished my, I think it's 18th book. I've interviewed loads of billionaires on my podcast. And yeah, I think I have about 9 different income streams or companies now that generate income for me. Obviously, there's loads of stuff in between that probably would take me all day to tell you. I broke a couple of public speaking world records, and we won Business of the Year 2016. My podcast, The Disruptive Entrepreneur, it's a big podcast, and we're over 600 episodes. And yeah, it's been a fun journey, and hopefully I'm just warming up because I'm only 41.
Well, you've got to stop retiring then, Rob.
Yeah, but I always say this because people will always throw that back in my face. Oh, Rob said he's retired and he's doing more than ever. But I said I'm retiring from operational involvement in my training company so I can do something else. And that might be finishing 2 books. I just finished Reinvent Yourself and Opportunity. That might be building my personal brand, spending more time on my foundation, doing the Young Entrepreneur Summit. You know, these are cool things. It's fun things. If work was no such thing and we all just got given credits, then I'd be doing these things anyway.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing is you rather than going, I got to make something with my life, I better go and get a job, you decided to start building assets, and those then compounded. And that has been the difference. I mean, for me, as a teacher of 15 years, it was always just career. I spent the 15 years climbing the ladder and I was doing really well. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and went, what am I doing with my life? Because I'm earning enough money each month to live, and then I'm earning enough money each month to live, and I wasn't building anything. And what we've since started doing with Parent Guide to GCSE and Parent Guide to Post 16 is beginning to build those assets, that intellectual property, the podcast, the website, the memberships, the courses that we're doing. And the reason that I was able to do that was because I'd been reading these kind of books, and therefore my mindset was in the right place, and I wasn't doing the expected thing of finish school, go and get a job, work until you're 60, 70 odd, because they keep moving the goalposts, and then get a couple of years out of your pension before it's too late. And so teachers, that is quite often what happens. Scarily, I think you go so hard for so long because it's a really intense job, and then you stop and everything kind of, I don't know, stops working properly maybe. So there was a question coming up in there. It was a rambly one, but books. If you could recommend, so to any teenagers listening or people that are thinking of starting and starting down a new path, I guess, I'm going to go with 3 books, and only one of them is allowed to be yours. What 3 books would you recommend they start with to kind of get their head straight in terms of what they can do about their money mindset and things?
Yeah. Okay. So I've read thousands of books, whether in audio or physical form. And because we talked about this being focused on financial for teens and kids, I'm going to go with 3 money books. So I think Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker is a good one because it covers a lot of mindset around money. I think Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, because I think it's one of the classics around money. You obviously mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so I'll leave that one there because you mentioned that. And then my book, Money, I'm allowed to recommend one of my own, which is more of an holistic, all things covered money. That they would be the 3 books I think to get you started. You've got mindset, skill set, strategies and tactics all involved there. I would also say as a teen or even any entrepreneur, try and get in the habit of listening to audiobooks, because you can do that when you're on the train, when you're in the car, traveling, walking, running, in the gym. And so you use what I call net time leverage. So, when you read a book, you have to sit down and free that hour to read that book. But if you're doing a workout and you were listening to music anyway, if you listen to audio, you don't have to free the hour. So you actually sort of create more time that way.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we recommend doing that kind of thing on the school run. If you've got a 45-minute walk to school, it's a great way to use your time. Find some podcasts that help you revise or something as well. That's massive, actually, because I got my son listening to personal development when he was 2. And he used to get in the car at 2 years old and go, more Tony, Daddy, more Tony, which was Tony Robbins. He loved it. But yeah, sometimes when people are, when kids are in the car with their parents, you're late, you're arguing, they're fighting.
put some really good educational material on. You probably can't do it all the time. I mean, you've probably got to rotate and be able to choose. But I think that that's a great thing to do as a family as well. Yeah.
So if we've got parents listening whose children are perhaps not getting on entirely that well at school because it's not for them, they're not going to go down the traditional route. They're already showing those little shoots and roots of entrepreneurial awesomeness. What sort of things can parents do to encourage their children to learn more, to kind of start out down that path?
So understanding the values of an individual will help you influence them, whether they're a child or an adult. So when you ask your child what's most important to you in your life, they will give you information to which you can link getting a financial education, listening to books or reading books that you think are going to help them. Because the challenge with the parent, you'll know this better than anyone, Emily, is we're the last person they listen to. And I remember when my son was, just in the womb of his mum, and me thinking, I can't wait to teach my son so much stuff. All this stuff I've learned over these is going to be so great. But actually, 99% of the time, when it comes from you, they don't want to hear it. So number one, you've got to know what's important to them so you can link what you want them to learn and do with what's important to them. And then the second thing, someone said to me once, 10% is what you say, 90% is how you say it. Like if I said, look, get out of here, or if I say, get out of here, there's a big difference between the two ways of saying the same thing. So how you talk to your children and how you influence them, and not being in conflict and not looking down on them and not doing it when they're distracted, I think is really, really important. The next thing is, I think you've got to try and find out what they want to do with their lives. Because I think as parents, I know I wanted my son to be a golfer. And we want our children to do well at school. Why? So we can brag to our friends how well they do at school or what university they went to. But actually, we've got to be careful not to project too much onto our children and find out what it is that they want to do. The next thing is, I think we've got to put them in real life situations. So my friend Jay Alderton, he did this brilliant little video. It went viral, 12 million views, where he's got his little baby, literally just a little baby, and he had a pull-up bar, and he sort of held his child at the pull-up bar, and he sort of tried to hold it, and he sort of fell, and he held him still, and then he put him there again, and the child held on the pull-up bar for about 5-6 seconds, and then he dropped, and then Jay caught him, and he said, kids don't learn being told what to do; they learn through experience, essentially. So, I think we've got to go and give our kids a load of experiences. I think we've got to go and send them out and go and sell stuff, go and sell lemonade stands or ice lollies or ice cream. We've got to send them off on camps. We've got to get them negotiating and hustling and working and give them little bits of jobs and get them cleaning cars and getting them doing it for us. And then, our friends, and then out to other people and put them in real life situations. I think that's really important, and of course, they don't ever learn from what you say. They always learn from what you do.
True story. That is the kind of video that only a dad would make. Mum, clearly not in the house at the time.
No. But it was really good. It was 10 seconds long, but it proved the point. You can't show a kid how to hold a bar. They have to hold the bar, and then they have to slip and fall. I know with my wife, she finds it hard to let our children make their own mistakes because she wants to protect them and she can see what's coming. And I completely get that. But sometimes, you learn through your own pain and experience. Like with homework, she's always helping them and always getting the homework done. Sometimes if they haven't done it, I said, you got to let him go and take the shit homework into school, and he's got to get a bollocking and he's got to know what it's like. I'd rather him get the lessons now than when he's 25.
Definitely. That's a large part of what we're about, is helping them, because when they get to A levels or whatever they do at post 16, they've got to be a lot more independent than they were at GCSE. They get what are not free periods, they are study periods, but they often tend to use them as free periods. And then they find that it then has this knock-on effect to, whether they get the work done or not. When they get to uni, you can't be there to help them or nag them. My two have just gone off to uni this year, and I think they're getting on all right. But I can't check in on them anymore because they're a bit far away now. And what you were saying earlier, our catchphrase is knowledge beats nagging every time.
Yeah.
The more you know about how to help your kids, the more you can have those kind of conversations and have them in the right way. Because when you nag it doesn't work. It causes that conflict between you, and then you're arguing, everybody's stressed out, and the relationship just kind of gradually breaks down, and you don't get them back until they've left home.
No.
At all.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah, it's always a challenge to kind of know how to talk to them about things. It's one of the reasons why our membership works really well. Our members always say, it's we deliver sort of weekly advice, so you get a little email with bite-sized chunks of here's what you need to know this week. And because it's coming from us, parents tend to sit down and read it with their child, so it's not mum and dad thinking they know everything. It's actually, this is what the experts say, and that makes a massive difference. So if you're struggling with your kids and you want to give them some advice and you're thinking but they're never going to listen from me, find someone else. Find another trusted adult that you know can give them that right advice, and they'll listen to. So Uncle Stevie works really well for one of ours because he thinks his Uncle Stevie is wonderful. And he won't listen to us, but he'll listen to Steve. And it's finding those ways of getting around that. And part of that is communication skills, which is super useful as an adult as well, because that's in most jobs, how we talk to people, how we then sell stuff, which you have to do in most jobs. Again, I used to sell algebra to teenagers, which is about as difficult as it sounds. But developing those communication skills are a massive part of what we do. So in terms of further advice and things, anywhere that so are there any great documentaries? Because documentaries are a fantastic way, if you can persuade them to watch them, of getting across some great advice about business, about how things work. I know you're a massive fan of the Alexander McQueen documentary. Any others that you would recommend that would be the sort of thing that teenagers might be willing to watch and would be useful for them?
Yeah, I can't think of anything specific on money. There are plenty on money, and there are plenty sort of quite anti-capitalist documentaries, Dirty Money being one of them. I would just watch anything that is around and about money and get a holistic view. So I would probably watch anything business or money focused that's a documentary on Netflix or Apple TV. I would definitely watch some of the films like Wolf of Wall Street, The Founder, Billions, all of those. They're very entertaining, and the way they speak to each other is not really like the real world. But I think when you immerse yourself in a subject, for example, when you watch Billions, no matter what problem there is financially or commercially, they've always got a workaround. Now, they happen to break the law and do some dodgy stuff, which you don't want to do. But what I love about that is it's no nonsense. Go find the problem, sort the problem out, get it done. So that's what I like for that. I thought The Founder was interesting because it was quite a neutral, I would say. Well, to be honest, it made Ray Kroc maybe look a little bit mercenary, but I felt it was fairly neutral in that obviously McDonald's is a huge franchise, and it sort of had the social commentary of a small little burger place that was sort of family run and owned versus turning it into a global conglomerate. So I found that really interesting. Something I would add to this is I would probably seek out entrepreneurs in real life. So I don't want to not add to what you said about Uncle Stevie, because I really believe in a godfather or a friend of a parent who's quite successful in business or they look up to. One, the kids will listen to them and not you. but you can get them doing a bit of work experience with them or go out for the day with them. So if you can find someone who's got a decent sized business or is an entrepreneur that they look up to, they're going to want to be like them more probably than they're going to want to be like you. So I would definitely get them involved with other entrepreneurs. As much as I've learned a lot from documentaries and I've gobbled many of them up, I've learned more from being mentored by real life entrepreneurs, billionaires. I've learned from many billionaires, and I've had many great mentors over the years that have taught me about the skill set, the mindset, the strategies, and the tactics of business and money and entrepreneurship. So I try and find some real life people as well.
Awesome. So if I'm a parent listening to this and I'm thinking, I would love to teach my child to be better with money than I am, because I think a lot of us know when we're falling into those traps and the credit cards are slightly piling up and it's starting to get a little bit uncomfortable. If parents maybe aren't so great at this stuff themselves, how do they teach their kids? What advice would you give if there's a parent listening thinking, I need to be better at this? You talked about the bucket strategy with money and things. Could you perhaps talk us through a couple of ideas that people could try out that might help them to be a little bit better with their finances?
So I think it's difficult to teach what you don't know or you're not very good at. So really, the first thing is they should teach themselves. So obviously, we've given you 3 really good book recommendations, including my own Money. There's some fundamental rules of money, and they're going to sound so basic, but fundamental rule number 1 of money is never spend more than you earn. Never spend more than you earn. So simple, but many people are spending 110, 120% plus of what they earn, and because you don't see compounding, it catches up on you. It happens slowly, or apparently slowly. At first anyway, not at the end, then you don't really notice it and it goes unawares. And you might earn net 3,500 and you spent 3,650, and that the extras on the credit card, and it builds and builds. So rule number 1 is never spend more than you earn. Rule number 2 is you have to save a portion of your money that you intend to never touch. So I call that the Sant account: save and never touch. Now that might be 1%, 2%, 5% at the start because you're pretty maxed out. And I'll come back to that. The third thing is you've got to set a budget, and you've got to target only spending 3,200 of your 3,500. And if you get to towards the end of the week and you've gone over your budget for the week, then you've got to get creative and do things that don't cost money. The next thing then is, once you start to save, you then need to invest a portion of your savings, because savings will grow very slowly because interest rates are very low. In fact, they may even go negative. So when interest rates are 5%, 6%, then you get a fair return on that. It beats inflation and it's growing. But at the moment, actually, savings are going down over time with inflation. So you save money as a discipline of not spending it, but then you've got to invest it to get an inflation beating return, whether that's into property or in your tax-free ISA allowance, etc. And then back to the save and never touch. The reason that you save and never touch is one day you build enough capital to live off the income. That's the goal. Because sometimes people say to me, oh, well, Rob, there's no point just saving money and never spending it. If you die with your money, it's no use to you then. But the goal is to build up enough capital so you can live off the income stream. Another little rule of money and investing. If you want to buy something that's a depreciating liability, then a wise thing to do is to lease it and buy an asset that can pay the lease. So let's say you wanted an entry-level Mercedes. I guess you could get one of them for 200 quid a month, maybe something like that, with a little deposit down. So if you go and buy a single let property with a capital sum, and you don't need a capital sum, and then you can make net £200 a month from that property, and then you get the lease for the Mercedes, and the property pays the lease for the Mercedes, then the Mercedes is essentially free. So I use income from assets to buy depreciating liabilities, whether that's lifestyle and travel and stuff like that, or whether it's leases for certain cars or whatever. So there's a few rules of money that if you learn yourself, and of course just taught you the fundamentals, then you teach them to your kids.
Indeed. And we've been trying to work with the boys off at university on budgeting. So, they're at uni, they get given a splash of cash at the beginning, and then there's the temptation, not so much at the moment in lockdown, but the temptation to go out and spend it all and go a bit crazy. And when we were teenagers and we went out, you'd pay generally with cash at the bar, and you took out 40 quid in your pocket, and when you were running out of money and you had just enough left for your taxi fare home, you kind of had to stop, because otherwise you were stuck. Now they've got access to their cards, and you had a stat that I can't remember now in money, like 12 to 18% more people spend if they're doing it on a card rather than with cash, something like that. And so any tips and techniques for making sure that you don't go a little bit too crazy and go over your budget? Anything that's worked for you or that you've heard has worked? I mean, we've been looking at Starling Bank. So Starling let you have spaces. So we make them do the money buckets thing and separate their income into, I can spend this on food, I can spend this on going out drinking, I can spend this on whatever.
Yeah, and you can also have charge cards, can't you? So that once the money that's on there, the budget that you spend is gone, it's gone, and you can't access any more. So you could do that too. Really, this is about budgeting and discipline. And there's something that I just want to talk about that's, and we haven't yet talked about, but it's absolutely vital. And there's this fascinating test. You should all research it. It's called the marshmallow test. And it basically teases children with marshmallows and seeing how long they can wait before they eat a marshmallow that's sat there. But they get rewarded for delaying gratification. But most of the kids can't. They just eat it. So teaching our children delayed gratification, teaching ourselves delayed gratification, and rewarding ourselves for delaying that's vital. Whether that's in exercise and rewards and celebrations, in eating, eating a healthy diet and delaying, not having desserts and only having them once a week, and seeing the results in your health and your fitness. So teaching delayed gratification. And really having your child get the lesson and seeing the benefit, because the problem, the children find delayed gratification really hard. They'll always take the quick win because they don't understand it yet. But what we have to do is make them wait for something and then show them the reward of waiting. So can we incentivize them and reward them? I'll give you an example. My son, and we had about £70 to take to his bank when he was about 7 years old. And Metro Bank's great for the kids. And, we go down there and he puts his savings in and stuff. And we went, actually was going to buy a Lego Ferrari. And he put all the money, he said, you know what, Dad, I just want to save all the money. And I went big on rewarding that sentence, that behavior, because he might have said it flippantly, but that actually I needed to edify. So when we see them make long-term or future or delayed decisions, we've got to reward them and show them that's a good move and teach them that. And of course, we've got to teach ourselves that, because as much as it's annoying, we will be the shining light of discipline 99% of the time. But the one time we mess up, the kids will remember. So it's the same with us. So for example, I will often wait and buy clothes in the sale, even though I see the new season and I love new season clothes, and I might have to wait 4 months for the sale. Or, I'll wait for the right time of the year to buy a car, because usually you get cars cheaper in the winter, especially sports cars. They're more expensive in the summer. And you're just teaching your children all of this stuff by doing it yourself. And in the end, they actually figure out, the longer I wait, the more I make, like compounding. The longer you wait for in your savings, the more it goes up. So teach delayed gratification.
Yeah, it fits really nicely with the whole revision plan thing as well, because that is very much delayed gratification. You revise for the whole year, little and often, like you said you did, a couple of hours a day, maybe, it doesn't even need to be that much. It adds up to a lot by the end of the year. But when you're at the start of the year, the end of the year is so far away that, I'll be fine, I'll skip it today. And one of the things we talk about quite often is setting up something like a star chart, which I know sounds stupid, but grown-ups like stickers. Teenagers, I can promise you as a teacher, teenagers love a sticker. And just like, I've done my work today. I've done my work today. And when you get to 5 in a row, you can have a Starbucks at the weekend. And helping them start to build up that little streak, just like they do on Snapchat. And as you said, helps build up that delayed gratification skill that is vital. If you can find any videos of kids doing the marshmallow test, it's well worth it, by the way. always fun to watch. So any other kind of top tips in terms of financial literacy? I mean, the issues that you perhaps see the most, the key things that you teach through the foundation when you're talking about this stuff, when you go in and do keynotes for people, anything we've not covered?
We've had a good grasp of the fundamentals. I'm going to go back to the mindset of money and the emotions of money, because this is something that's harder to teach and not taught anywhere near as much. You can find practical exercises and budgeting plans, more easily than the emotions and the mindset. So many people of my generation and my parents' generation, especially in the UK and especially in certain towns and cities, were almost raised that money was bad, being rich was bad, being commercial was greedy, etc. And I think that as parents raising children, we want to raise them with a balanced view of money. So when I wrote Money, which is a pro-capitalism book, I also really tried to rip it apart by, studying communism and socialism, and tried to, in a certain way, disprove my own argument. In fact, when I did that, I ended up backing up my own argument, because many socialist and communist regimes are probably, you could argue, more greed-based or power-based than many capitalist systems. But in reality now, we have a load of hybrid systems anyway. But teaching them that money is not good and money is not bad. Money doesn't feel, money doesn't project, money doesn't judge. Money is merely a universal exchange of value. It's a unit of account. It's a measure of worth and value. And what is greed and power and philanthropy and giving is a human impression or implication on money. So money is amoral, it's neutral, until someone gets some of it and they do something with it. And if you could give me a £20 note and I could go and feed 100 kids in a developed country for a day or a week, and I have turned that money into positive energy to help people. You could give me that £20 note and I could go and buy a magazine of 20 bullets and go to a school and shoot 20 teenage kids. And I could turn that money into pure evil. Now, people project their own values onto money. It's good, it's bad, it's right, it's wrong, it's left, it's right, it's capital, it's social. But in reality, money is, remember this, it's an exchange, a universal exchange of value. It's a unit of account. It's a measure of worth. It's a way to store and hedge against an uncertain future. I mean, imagine if you bought £100 worth of meat and you tried to store that for 5 years. That meat would decay in weeks and your £100 would go to zero. Whereas £100, especially in the polymer notes, you could store them for 100 years and they will still be worth £100. Now, okay, inflation's going to erode it. But, so really understanding what money is, and I went into a lot of detail in my money books about this, and teaching your children money, what it is, and then what people do to judge to make money. And I believe that the best balance is meeting the selfish with the selfless equally. Making profit for yourself to better your life, but also giving some of it away, making money and making a difference, having a commercial enterprise and a philanthropic cause, and actually balancing the poles instead of being extreme. You don't have to be all capitalist and then all philanthropist. You can be both, which is what I'm trying to be.
Yeah, I think the title of the book summed it up. Money, know more, make more, give more, because that's just as important as part of the equation, isn't it? The kind of being of service and making the money have that positive energy and going out there and doing something awesome with it. So,
yeah, money is energy. That's what it is. Because what it does is it changes one form to another. Let's say I buy that book off you, behind you, GCSE for Parents. And let's say I sold a record. I love vinyl. I've got records down there. So I sold a record for £20. And then I got £20 and I gave £20 to you for that GCSE for Parents book. I have changed the form of a record into the form of a book. So essentially, I have created a new physical form through money moving. So money is energy. And money loves speed and hates friction. So where you can remove friction and increase speed, then you will flow more money to you. And the word currency literally means flow, from the Latin word currere, to flow. So the more you can get money flowing by creating value, then the more that you're going to attract.
Awesome. I think we've covered pretty much everything that we could possibly think of in terms of money and mindset and financial literacy. If there are people listening who are thinking, I know my child needs a bit of this, I know they need a bit of a kick, but I kind of don't know where or how to support them. In terms of the foundation, what would people do to get in touch with the foundation and say, look, we need a bit of help, we want a bit of financial education and so on? How do you do that? How would they then get in touch with you as part of the foundation?
I think there's two things they should do. I have a podcast called Money. It's not as well known as my Disruptive Entrepreneur podcast, but it's free education on money, and we're 120 or 30 episodes in. I will just have one little warning. I occasionally drop the odd expletive, which I'm sure teens already know. And I think I've accidentally slipped one out on this interview, but just fair warning there. And that's always going to be free, that podcast. There's no ads or anything like that. And there's loads of good content on money there. And then my foundation, if you just go to robmoore.com/foundation, I'm pretty sure it's that, or robmoore.com. Let me just search here. And then there's a foundations tab, I think.
Sorry, putting you on the spot. There is a foundations tab. I don't know what
I'm just giving the URL. Yeah, robmoore.com/robmoore foundation. It's the Rob Moore Foundation. People can apply for grants. They can apply for scholarships. They can apply for getting information and education and courses subsidized. Loads of stuff. I've backed an app. So someone got a grant to build out an app recently. Someone got a grant from my foundation to write a children's book, but teaching them about dealing with grief and loss, because her husband and her brother both died. So the dad and the uncle of these two children passed away. So she wanted to write a book to show the stories of dealing with grief and loss, which I thought was a beautiful thing to do. So we gave her a grant as well. So yeah, go and have a look, and let's help you start and scale that business.
Awesome. And then for those of you that are listening, because you're part of Rob's tribe rather than mine, I'm Emily. I run the Parent Guide to GCSE. If your child is doing their GCSEs or they're in post-16 and you would like any kind of support with anything from the academics, from creating an epic revision plan, all the way through to then writing an amazing personal statement that gets them into the uni course of their dreams, then you can find us on parentguidetogcse.com or parentguidetopost16.com. And if you want to come back and listen to any of our other episodes on the podcast, it is the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast, and we're on all good podcast platforms, I think.
Boom.
So massive thank you, Rob, for your time. That's been amazing. I think we've covered lots of things. And if anybody has any questions, come back to me on our Facebook page and I will see what I can do. I've read the book. It's almost as good as Rob, right?
Yeah, if you want to come in and engage in some of the comments as well on some of, because this is on my LinkedIn and my Facebook page and YouTube, and you can share some of your links, or if anyone's got any questions, you can comment and you can share these videos around if you want as well. Or my content is free.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Emily.